And they use one gimmick after another, one foolish thing after another to get your money. Run.
The religious walking dead pretend to follow Jesus because religion is their meal ticket. It is their profession. It is their status in society. They dominate religious events, but there is no life in them.
The ends of the world are upon us. This is the hour we've all preached about. And if you're truly Spirit-filled, if you're the Spirit of Christ, that bears witness with you right now. What I'm saying strikes a chord in your heart.
Disciples are not satisfied with what the crowd desires. They need much more from Jesus. They yearn to know the deeper things of God. Therefore, they separate themselves from the crowd to pursue. This is True News. I'm Rick Wiles. Will Donald Trump design and build the third temple in Jerusalem to fulfill the satanic prophecies of Kabbalah Freemasons? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it on today's edition of True News. First, Doc Burkhart, Edward Zoll, and I will take a look at the top news stories from around the world. Let's start with the report from Vice.com that Jeffrey Epstein's Mossad handler, Ghislaine Maxwell, attended the highly secretive Campfire retreat last year. Known simply as Campfire, the annual retreat is an invitation-only private event sponsored and paid for by Jeffrey Bezos, the billionaire owner of Amazon. Primarily, the invited guests are influential authors, movie directors, musicians, artists, and political activists. It operates on Chatham House rules, meaning guests are prohibited from talking about anything that they saw or heard at the event. Campfire is held at Bishop's Lodge Ranch Resort and Spa, north of Santa Fe, New Mexico, not far from Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Doc and Edward are ready to jump in to discuss this story and many more, including our lead topic for today: will Donald Trump design and construct the third temple in Jerusalem? Edward, this story, Ghislaine Maxwell.
The elusive associate of Jeffrey Epstein, the one that appears to have avoided prosecution and any kind of investigation all across this multi-decade scandal. Well, Rick, it appears that she has been tied to yet another tech billionaire, because obviously the previous firms and other people who were connected to Epstein, people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, for example, through the MIT Media Lab. Now we have a connection to Mr. Epstein for Jeff Bezos, but this time through the alleged paramour, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I understand she did not attend this year, 2019.
That's correct.
But she was at Campfire 2018, and that actually was her third visit to the Campfire retreat. So she is being invited back for some particular reason. But this event is a who's who of...
It's the Davos of Silicon Valley, in this sense.
It is, but the people that are invited, it's not so much tech barons, although they are in attendance. Primarily, it's influencers, writers, authors, musicians, artists, movie directors, producers.
Social media architects.
Social media, people that are going to influence the thinking.
Craft the minds
of
the next generation.
The people who are going to influence the thinking of the people, of using the technology that the tech barons had built. So Mr. Bezos pays for the entire thing. Roughly 450 guests invited each year. Everything is paid for. And as I said, it's Chatham House rules. You can't talk about anything that you saw or heard. But why would if this is primarily for artists and musicians and movie producers and authors, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell there?
Well, it appears she might have been a +1, though it doesn't appear people get invited with guests. So let's say if Jeff Bezos were to comment finally on this, he can't really deny that they didn't know she was coming. But according to Vice, she came with Scott Borgerson. He's the tech firm CEO, the man that Ghislaine was reportedly hanging out at the house at near Boston. The Daily Mail, for example, reported that they were dating for some time, and actually this is where she was basically spending time during the past 6 months to avoid the media.
She was living in his house.
Yes, according to the Daily Mail reports.
Right. But he said she's not there anymore.
Right.
But nobody knows where she's at, and that's why the FBI can't find her.
And not at In-N-Out Burger, since we now know that photo was doctored.
And obviously the FBI doesn't ask her lawyers where she's hiding. They're not looking for her.
No, they probably know exactly where she's at, and they can go and talk to her anytime they wanted to. They just don't want to.
Right? You would find out truth if you question her. So they're not going to question.
If you were hiding from the FBI, do you think they'd find you? Of course they would.
There is no place on the planet I could go that they wouldn't find me. And it's just a question of who do they want to find.
Right.
All right. She's not being
Sought after.
She's not going to be questioned. Epstein officially is dead. I don't believe he's dead, but officially he's dead. The story's over. That's the viewpoint. That's the official thing. He was a bad man. He did terrible things to young girls. He's dead. End of story.
Let's move on.
Move on.
We've got other things to talk about now.
Yeah. But I'd like to talk about Les Wexner, but he's not going to be questioned either, because he was just a poor victim.
Yeah, he was taken advantage of to the tune of $1 billion by Jeffrey Epstein.
The man that he gave
lost $1 billion.
power of attorney to, a man he allowed to represent him in both business, real estate, and even commercial activity.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Nancy Pelosi said today that she expects public hearings on the impeachment of President Trump to start this month, the month of November. So once again, we have another confirmation that the impeachment is on track for November, and that's why Mitch McConnell was preparing the Senate for a trial possibly by December. I think this thing's going to move quickly. I think they're going to come back from their break, and there's going to be some public, televised hearings. They're going to get a lot they're going to draw a lot of blood out of Donald Trump, and then they're going to introduce the resolutions, articles of impeachment. It's going to pass, and suddenly Donald Trump will be impeached, and Mitch McConnell and the Republicans will have to hold a trial in December. I think it's going to move very fast.
Well, the White House, through Stephanie Grissom, has said that they're prepared for an impeachment. They're just assuming that at this point, and so they're building their strategy around that. The president tonight is in Tupelo, Mississippi, for a campaign rally, and has two other events as we go into next week. So he's doing a full court press in response to everything that's going on, and that's his home turf. I mean, the rallies are where he can go out and say what he needs to say regarding the impeachment proceedings. So we'll probably hear some more of that tonight as he speaks in Tupelo, Mississippi, and also in Kentucky next week. And so these are things that the president can take advantage of as far as his access to. I don't like the term bully pulpit, but that's what it is for him, to be able to go out there and make his case to his supporters and those that follow after him and make the case against impeachment.
Stephanie Grisham alluded to a fireside chat that the president may do. Do you know anything about what she was referring to?
I believe it's going to be an interview. Basically, actually, I believe the president is preparing to give a statement to the entire nation. Fireside chat, meaning how they'll frame it, like the Nixon kind of statement to the nation. And he's going to read, reportedly, according to what's come out on this, he's going to read the transcript that he published through the White House when we were at the UN General Assembly.
You're going to read it?
He's going to literally read it. And this is the fact that he's still doing rallies, the fact that he's thinking about doing this. One, I don't know if President Trump is taking this impeachment proceeding seriously. And part of why I'd say this is that he has to realize every statement he makes now at rallies, whether it's televised, it's all going to be used against him.
Yes.
No Miranda rights have been written to him, but he has to understand that everything you say and do will be used against you, Mr. President. And if he were to comment, change, let's say, for example, his recollection of the call, let's say during this televised event or at any one of these upcoming rallies, that will be introduced as another example of, let's say, a distortion or they'll take him at his word if he uses different terminology like favor, did something for me, I wanted to hold off military aid. He has to take this seriously. I hope he is, but this fireside chat, Rick, is going to be a televised address to the nation.
Be interesting to watch, Doc.
Yes.
Two U.S. intelligence officials openly said, thank God there's a deep state. The deep state is taking down Donald Trump. That's basically what they said before an audience. Who were the people speaking?
The first one was George Bush's former acting CIA director, John McLaughlin. And he actually was speaking at the George Mason University. McLaughlin, yes, McLaughlin. The George Mason University panel. And this was basically a panel hosted with all of Barack Obama's senior intelligence officials, including CIA Director John Brennan, who was the second man who cheered this deep state intelligence coup. Acting CIA Director Michael Morrell was also speaking. And then former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who basically was fired for leaking to the media, was also on this panel.
Michael Morrell, he was the guy that said, hey, what we need to do is kill Russian soldiers in Syria.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, send Russia a message. Send them back in body bags.
That's right. So you wonder why this war has been going on in Syria? It's people like Michael Morrell. And so he has this hatred of Russia, which is why he's part of this resistance to Donald Trump's administration. Let's watch this video clip. What did this appear? Was this on C-SPAN? Yeah, C-SPAN. Yeah,
C-SPAN broadcaster was on a panel at George Mason University. And in short, this man confirmed not only that there's a deep state, but that he's part of it, okay?
And they worship a God, but not the same God I worship. So watch this.
Okay, here we go.
This will always be, as long as he's there, a tense and conflictful relationship, which in many ways is the nature of intelligence anyway.
But there is something unique. You'd have to agree that now the impeachment inquiry is underway, sparked by a complaint from someone within the intelligence community. It feeds the president's concern and often used term about a deep state being there to take him out.
Thank God for the deep state. I mean, I think, everyone here has seen this progression of diplomats and intelligence officers and White House people trooping up to Capitol Hill right now and saying, these are people who are doing their duty, who are responding to a higher call. It doesn't, I guess it doesn't, well, think about it for a minute. With all of the people who knew what was going on here, it took an intelligence officer to step forward and say something about it, which was the trigger that then unleashed everything else.
There you go. You got the confirmation, the existence of a deep state, the source of the resistance, and they've reached a point where they're openly telling you, yes, we exist, and we are taking down the President of the United States.
Right. In this particular clip, we saw him, first of all saying that, acknowledging that there is a deep state, but also he said, and it exists. It works throughout the various agencies, and thank goodness that out of all of this, an intelligence agent is bringing all this about for the impeachment of the president.
The unnamed, unidentified whistleblower. So it's a spook. It's a spook inside the White House who is leading this operation to take down President Trump.
Rick, did you see that there is a name that's floating around for this man that a lot of other commentators and outlets have mentioned? I think we've mentioned headlines. Do you want to name the person?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, we're not naming.
Yeah, according to Paul Sperry of Real Clear Investigation, Real Clear Politics, the man is named Eric Ciaramella. Now, this man actually worked under John Brennan. The man on that panel who was cheering on the patriotism, the duty of this whistleblower, he worked for Mr. Brennan when Mr. Brennan was head of the CIA. And he actually also served under, he was invited actually as a guest of Joe Biden to a luncheon for Italian Prime Minister Mr. Renzi in 2016. Now, Eric Charmella, lastly, has a connection to a woman by the name of Alexandra Chalupa.
Oh, she's the woman in Ukraine.
The DNC research operative.
It was digging up dirt on Donald Trump in 2016.
Not just digging it up, being paid by the DNC, almost $412,000 between 2004 and 2016 to do this job.
Wow.
Well, Mr. McLaughlin wasn't the only one that confirmed the existence of the deep state at that particular meeting. Also, former CIA Director John Brennan was there. No relation to Margaret Brennan, who was hosting.
I was wondering about that. Is she a daughter?
No, not related at all, and so just happened to have the same last name. Coincidence.
And be seated next to each other.
Right. But John Brennan also confirmed the existence of a deep state. Watch this. This is clip number 3. He cheers a deep state coup against President Trump.
So thank goodness for the women and men who are at the intelligence community and law enforcement communities who are standing up and carrying out their responsibilities on behalf of their fellow citizens. So if he doesn't use their intelligence, if he doesn't use their contributions to this country's security, well, bad on him. But our people who continue to fight the fight in the trenches here as well as overseas will do their work irrespective of what he is going to do or say about them. When they raise their hand in an oath of allegiance to this country, as Andy said, they have that obligation. It's a duty of their oath. And that's what compelled this whistleblower, whether he's from CIA or wherever, to speak out. It's what's compelled Ambassadors Ivanovich and Taylor and Colonel Windman and others to be able to say this is wrong. Mm-hmm. This is antithetical to the values that this country was founded upon. And unfortunately, there are too many people on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue in the Congress who hold their nose over what's being done. And until they realize that what Mr. Trump is doing is trampling, again, the foundations of this great country of ours, we're going to be in for a rocky road. So I just am pleased every day that my former colleagues in the intelligence community are continuing to fulfill their duties.
Right there is all you need to know about why the CIA should be dismantled.
Right, because they think they're the government. They think they're the ones.
They are now. They are. They're openly saying we have more power than the elected president of the United States, and nobody dares to stand up against us. Let's remember that the first CIA director, Wild Bill Donovan, ordered the assassination of General Patton at the end of World War II. The first CIA director had General Patton murdered. If you don't believe me, read the book Target Patton.
Yes.
The author of that book interviewed the man on his deathbed who confessed that Donovan selected him. He was the
assassin?
To be the assassin. He was in the U.S. Army. Mm-hmm. And on his deathbed, he told the author of that book how Bill Donovan selected him to murder General Patton. So that's how the CIA started, killing one of the greatest generals that the U.S. has ever had. So here we are today. They're taking out the President of the United States.
They lie, they cheat, they steal.
And they're not bashful about it now. Who really is the CIA director?
That's a good question. Is it Gina Haspel? Who is it, Rick?
Well, like yesterday,
is it still John Brennan? I mean, because the way they talk is, the policies are continuing from the Obama era till today.
Has Gina Haspel issued any orders that nobody inside the CIA is to participate in any resistance against the President of the United States?
You mean the same Gina Haspel who was the station chief in London while the Steele dossier was being passed to the FBI?
Yes, that one.
I wonder. I don't think she has issued any statements against resistance.
You mean Gina Haspel, the queen of waterboarding?
Yes, torture queen.
Well, yesterday I read a story about how the State Department is refusing to give a U.S. senator the documents related to Hillary Clinton's emails, the U.S. State Department. Pardon me, I forget the senator's name. He's from Wisconsin. And he's been trying for quite some time to get the U.S. State Department to release Hillary Clinton's emails to Barack Obama. And the State Department will not surrender them to a United States senator. Who is the Secretary of State?
Mike Pompeo.
Why doesn't Mike Pompeo order his subordinates to respond to the senator's request? Not a request, a demand.
The same reason that the tweets that Mike Pompeo did in 2015, 2016, supporting WikiLeaks are no longer online. It's because it appears here there are some things that the former CIA director, Secretary Pompeo, wants kind of hidden and not brought up again.
But my point, Edward, is does Mike Pompeo have control as Secretary of State? Or doesn't he have control of the department? Is he issuing commands that are resisted? I mean, what do we have going on in this government right now? Do we have two governments?
At least two factions of government that are fighting against each other. I mean, both McLaughlin and Brennan here said, you know, we operate, we exist, we're here. They're even self-branding themselves as the deep state now. I mean, they're coming right out and saying it at this point, Rick.
They're bragging about it, and they're bragging about it right in your face and my face. They're saying you have nothing you can do about it. You have no power over us. We're more powerful than the American people.
And did you hear Mr. Brennan? I don't think he meant to say it, but he said it anyway out loud. He said, we have a responsibility to protect our interests here and overseas. Well, you know,
the CIA is not allowed to have any activity here.
That's right. They're not allowed to have activity here in the U.S. But he just said that they were operating here.
And he also said they're responding to a higher power.
Right.
Well, certainly not the God that I serve.
Right.
So what power are they referring to? All right, let's move on. Times of Israel. Netanyahu told ministers Trump can't be counted on to act against Iran.
This is very interesting. In statements basically behind closed door to cabinet members a couple weeks ago now, he said that President Trump would not act against Iran until U.S. general elections in November at the earliest, November of 2020.
So again, we asked the question, is Donald Trump being pressured, threatened with impeachment because he will not issue the command to attack Iran? Donald Trump's, this is the paradox of this matter. Donald Trump's strongest supporters are Jewish Zionists and evangelical Zionists.
Right.
And his strongest critics and enemies are Jewish Zionists. How do you reconcile this? I mean, we have Adam Schiff, Jerry Nadler, you know, we go down the list of all the powerful Jews in the House that are working against him. Colonel Vindman is Jewish from Ukraine. You know, we could go down the list.
Senator Cindy Blumenthal.
All of them on the left who are leading the movement to remove Donald Trump. And yet on the right, his strongest supporters are Jewish Zionists. So are they playing him? Are they using him? Are they pressuring him from each side? That's my personal view.
Right. Once you believe in the Hegelian dialectic, that's where it takes you. If you control both sides of the argument to get to the answer that you want at the end. So that's the whole proposal there. Mr. Netanyahu said, and this jumped out at me in the article, Rick, says, Iran's brazenness in the region is increasing and even getting stronger in light of the absence of a response. And in this, he's referring to, he was making this remark to IDF soldiers on Thursday. He's basically kind of saying in that remark that the United States has not stepped up a response to Iran.
Yes, and that's making Iran bolder. And he said, according to this article that's based on a Channel 13 report, that Israel may be forced to act without the United States.
You mean fight your own fight? Fight your own battles?
All right, that's a big lie. We know that's a lie because they won't fight their own battle. I've heard this story for years Israel may attack.
You might push them to the limit.
Yes.
They might have to
pull
up IDF reserves.
They won't do it. They're too shrewd. They're too sneaky. They're going to push to get the President of the United States and get American men dying in that battle. And if Donald Trump will do it, they'll get a Mike Pence. And if Mike Pence won't do it, they'll get a Nikki Haley. And Nikki Haley won't do it, they'll get a Joe Biden. They'll get somebody that will do it.
That's right.
Because they control both parties. They're not loyal to either party. Times of Israel also, Israeli government not involved in NSO group's alleged global hacking.
That tells me they were involved right there. The fact that they had to come out and say, oh, by the way, our government was not involved in this at all.
A top Likud cabinet minister said today the Israeli government has no involvement in the actions of the NSO group, a company accused of hacking government officials, journalists, and dissidents around the world. I'm glad I don't use WhatsApp, but that doesn't say they're not hacking my phone on other things. I just assume that they're hacking it.
There was a statement here that was very telling. The Environmental Protection Minister, Zev Elkin, said that NSO is a private player using capabilities that Israelis have. So though he's denying, the Israeli government, we have nothing to do with this. We have tons of people involved in cyber protection, cyber offensive tools. But he did admit here that
we can't help it that we know how to do it.
Exactly. He's saying that whatever you're now reporting on with the NSO group, the Israeli government and the military by proxy has the ability to do just that, which is to hack into your cell phone remotely, to track an individual. Reportedly, a man very close to Jamal Khashoggi was being tracked through this back door the NSO group had set up.
Well, the Reuters news agency is saying that the government officials and journalists who have been hacked by the Israelis include people in the United States, Mexico, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, and India. And India is demanding answers.
Right. Yeah, they are throwing a fit about this, and in fact, Prime Minister Modi made a statement earlier today directly at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to get some answers related to this. So this is actually India and Israel have a pretty good relationship going on, but this has caused some friction here.
Yeah, because the Zionists get caught being Zionists.
Spying, on top of what they've already done in Washington, they're not doing around the globe.
Speaking of Zionists being caught being Zionists, the best information I get about the Zionists comes from the Zionists.
Yes.
Because they
love to tell it.
They brag about how sneaky they are. They just can't hold it back. So Haaretz newspaper, this is today, ex-spy who set up Zionist underground in Iraq dies at age 95. And so this man's said by the time of his death this week at the age of 95, Shmuel Mariah, his deeds of daring do could easily have filled a thick volume. It would include organizing the first illegal immigration to pre-state Israel by air, setting up the Shin Bet Security Service undercover unit known as the Mistarvin, and capturing an SS member who had infiltrated the Israeli Defense Forces. Okay, so this man right here, there's the article from Haaretz, the ex-spy who set up Zionist underground in Iraq at age 95 has passed away. This is pre-1948. Nobody had recognized a Zionist state of Israel. This is back in the days when the Jewish Zionists were terrorists.
Yes, and getting weapons from the Nazis.
And money.
For nearly 20 years, Rick, he lived in Iraq. He married, had children, pretended to be a Muslim for 20 plus years.
He pretended to be an Arab Muslim.
Yes.
They developed Palestinian accents, too. It's another thing I noticed in this story. They learned to speak like the locals. In case they did get captured, they could just blame it on the Palestinians.
So this group that he led, it's called the Mistarvin. And this unit was given the assignment by the Zionist masters in would have been the 1920s. So think about this: the Zionists, they had just taken over Russia, 1917.
Right.
slaughtered millions of Christians in the Bolshevik Revolution. Then they started to spread out to Palestine, to capture Palestine. They'd already captured Russia, bloodshed everywhere in Russia. Now they were setting their sights on Palestine. So in the 1920s, they started illegal immigration. Notice that? Illegal immigration.
Into Palestine.
Yes. So the Zionist Jews were coming in from Russia, from Europe, from the United States, coming into Palestine illegally to infiltrate Palestine to set up their communist cells. Then, as they got enough people there, they were able to start carrying out terrorist activities.
Right.
Sound familiar?
It sounds very familiar.
So this man that Haaretz is glorifying was his assignment was to pretend that he was an Arab Muslim.
And he did that for decades.
Yes, married an Iraqi woman, had children.
Yes.
So these children grew up not knowing that their dad
was a spy.
Was a Jewish spy.
Yes.
There to take the land of their relatives.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder how many individuals serving in a very similar role to this were placed all around the Middle East at the same period that this underground movement was preparing to take that land by force.
He said, when we sent them on the mission, we didn't order them to get married, but it was clear to both sides that this expectation existed and that it would accomplish the goal better.
So
they had no moral qualms about deceiving innocent people. Think about it, Doc. Think about, what if you found out that your father had lied to you for 20 years, that he wasn't who he said he was, that he was a spy, and that he was there to help his masters take your relatives' land?
Well, I think it was pretty cool he was a spy, but but I'd be disappointed, of course. I'd be shocked.
That he was a traitor.
Yeah,
he was
a traitor to our country.
That he was there to hurt your family.
Right, and he wasn't who he said he was. In fact, he was against everything I'd been taught to believe since I was a child. And these guys, their training included studying Islam, including the Quran, as Edward said, learning Palestinian accents. They got married, had kids.
Hey, do you think that they would infiltrate into America and marry Christian women and join churches and pretend that they're Christians?
Or immigrate to America pretending to be Muslims and maybe go to flight schools in Vero Beach, Florida, in Fort Pierce, Florida. I mean, is that a possibility?
No, I imagine them pretending that they're Messianic Jews. Infiltrate churches, marry the church women. Say, I'm a Messianic Jew.
Shofar in one hand, Zionist passport in the back pocket.
But your real purpose is to infiltrate and take over.
Wow.
So don't say that I'm making this kind of stuff up. It's there in Haaretz.
Haaretz itself.
They were doing it in the 1920s, and now they're bragging about it.
They said, boy, we ought to make this a movie.
Also, there's another little key detail here. Is that we've spoken in the past in regard to trafficking of human beings, how words are put in the place of you saying, I'm going to take X number of girls, children, women, men. This Mossad operation, pre-Mossad, according to the Haaretz article here, they would refer to the men and women as bales of wool and bales of silk.
Yes. These are the Jews that they were bringing in. Yes, that was the code language that they used, that they were shipping in wool or silk. But that was the method. That was the way the Jewish coyotes were transporting.
The immigration,
yes.
The importation,
yes.
Really trafficking of humans.
But for the Arabs, as each decade went by, they're looking around going, man, there's a lot more European Ashkenazis living here than there was.
Carpets.
Yeah, than there were last year. All right. Why? Because it was an illegal immigration operation, but the purpose was military conquest.
Yes.
That was the purpose of the illegal immigration, military conquest.
Yes.
You know what's so interesting about...
And it worked. And it's still working today.
And the thing that they've historically done is they decry the very things that I'm talking about the Zionists, did to take their land from basically the Muslims from doing the same thing. In this case, they've decried the Palestinians, the Muslims in the region, having a right of return to the country. The Hebrew Standard Law, which was passed in 2018, barred such a thing. And they argue that if Muslims were allowed to return, Palestinians specifically, back to Israel, they would lose the country overnight. Well, isn't that partly what they did to take the land in 48?
How would an evangelical Zionist, in their logic, be able to justify a Jewish person pretending to be a Muslim for 30, 40 years in order to illegally immigrate people into Palestine to do terrorist acts? Would they say that was the will of God?
I really do, because these evangelical Zionists aren't Christians. They're not Christians, Doc. They're in another religion. They do not worship the Lord Jesus Christ. I've come to that place. They're not Christians. So they would justify it because they're Zionists.
So the end would justify the means.
That's right. Case. Hey, President Assad of Syria gave an interview to SANA, that's the Syrian news agency, and he said some amazing things here. It's a long interview. We're not going to go through every quote in here, but I do want to talk about a couple of them. He said he described the American Israeli operation. And he said everything that's going on in his country is an Israeli operation.
Right.
He just openly said it. This is an Israeli operation to take down his government. But he described the American Israeli-led war in Syria. He described it as a Hollywood movie. He basically saying there is no reality to this. Everything is based on Hollywood standards. And so he started talking about the recent, the alleged killing of al-Baghdadi. And President Assad said, we don't know if he's dead. There were no American planes on our radar. Nobody flew in our country. We have no evidence at all that Baghdadi was killed in Idlib. But he described it as a movie, as a Hollywood production.
Yeah, it is a
so he's caught on to the way the propaganda is working.
Well, I think he's probably even watching Trunews. Read this quote right here. Was he really killed? Bashar Assad told Sana. He said, was he killed but through a different method? Is in a very ordinary. Was he kidnapped? Was he hidden? Or was he removed and given a facelift? God only knows. This is from the president of Syria.
Was he given another face?
Right.
Which is the same thing we've said about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
They just give him a new face, new identity, release him back out into the public. But he said that Baghdadi was held in prison in Iraq by the U.S. and that the Americans released Baghdadi.
I believe that.
With an assignment. Mr. Baghdadi, you're going to be the head of ISIS.
We're going to give you weapons, trucks.
We're going to let you out of this prison. We're going to let you out of this prison on one condition. You have to pretend to be the head of ISIS. And so what Assad said in here is they may have killed him because they were done with him. And what we said the other day, Baghdadi was written out of the script.
His mission was complete.
But he keeps asking the evidence. He said, just like the way they got rid of bin Laden. He said it's the same story. Somebody in Syria is watching True News. Somebody at the palace is watching True News. Whether it's the president or his senior aides, somebody's watching this show and saying, hey, you need to think about this, Mr. President.
Oh, good for them, because if they weren't thinking about these things, they probably would have lost their country a couple of years ago at this point. He's had to deal with fake chemical attacks and obviously dealing with a fake proxy group of flunkies. He actually called them flunkies, referring to ISIS in his country. Assad has held on. He's defied every, basically, prophecy by these neocon warmongers in the West.
Well, it's a fascinating interview. Maybe we'll have more time on Monday to get into it. The Russians, the foreign ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, she lashed out at the United States for stealing Syria's oil. She put a dollar value on it.
$30 million a month.
$30 million a month. Here it is. That's a TASS news agency. U.S. actions to pump oil out of Syria to the tune of $30 million per month. Illegal. Not only is it illegal, but what you said a few minutes ago about Donald Trump and impeachment, he may be in danger of something even greater. He may have incriminated himself on a war crime.
How's that?
He said, we're taking the oil. We're taking Syria's oil.
And we'll kill people to do it if we have to.
We kill people, and we're going to take that oil, and we're going to use the wealth.
I hadn't thought about it being...
That's a war crime.
Yeah, you're right.
Is the United States, has the United States Congress declared war against Syria?
No.
Has Syria attacked the people of the United States of America?
No.
There's no war. There is no war between Syria and the United States, and Donald Trump openly bragged that the U.S. military was stealing the oil of a sovereign nation. He could be prosecuted as an international war criminal.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And you think of the other action by the Trump administration this past week is the giving of $4.5 million to the infamous White Helmet organization. Maria Zakharova, she noted that because this money has now been transferred, that you can likely expect a false flag attack coming in Syria in the coming weeks.
Well, that was my first thought when I saw that the White Helmets were back. But, hey, there's only one reason Mr. Trump is giving them nearly $5 million.
There's going to be a gas attack.
They've got an operation. They're going to need the White Helmets in there to verify that President Assad gassed some kids.
His own people, mind you.
Yes. He just gets up in the morning and says, I feel like gassing children today.
And he was so proficient that there was no evidence left behind. No, basically gas residue in the paint of the buildings, for example, in the towns where this alleged attack occurred.
And even the UN committee,
OPCW,
said there's no evidence. But that story got buried, didn't it?
Yes. So the Russians are claiming that the Americans are pulling $1 million a day of oil out of Syria through convoys, through various means. I have to ask the question, Rick, you know, we've been touting here for a few months, the president's been touting that we're an energy independent nation, right? Energy independent. I wonder what a cut of $30 million in our oil supply, would we still be energy independent?
Well, and
are we energy independent because we've been stealing $1 million worth of oil a day?
Well, that's what I think, you know. Most likely we control Iraq's oil. We now control Syria's. We may have cut a deal with Syria, with Saudi Arabia, for all we know.
Because President Trump did say last week that we're going to control Middle East oil.
He said we now control the oil of the Middle East. He didn't say Syria. He said the oil of the Middle East. Could have been a slip of tongue and he meant to say Syria, but he said the oil of the Middle East. The Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, ordered Russia to withdraw all troops from Crimea. We're back to what we've seen over the last 7 years, alternating between Syria, Ukraine, Syria, Ukraine. It's all about confronting the Russians. It's Syria and Ukraine.
When there's a stalemate in one arena,
they heat up the other one. So all this stuff about Ukraine and impeaching Trump and all this stuff, it's really about NATO wanting to go to war against Russia. So today, standing beside President Zelensky,
yes,
the first Jewish prime minister of Ukraine.
President of Ukraine.
President, but also
there's also a Jewish prime minister.
Jewish prime minister. First time in history that I think any Western country has had a Jewish president and Jewish prime minister simultaneously. Right. So it's in Ukraine. Just think about that every time you hear Ukraine. So standing beside President Zelensky, the NATO Secretary General, pledged NATO's support for Ukraine in the Black Sea by staging NATO military exercises in the region.
Get ready, it's going to start again. The whole Kerch Strait incident that we were speaking about last November and December, well, this is going to be the same showdown.
Remember, the Russians were expecting NATO to make a run through the Kerch Strait?
Like a multinational flotilla they were going to try to send through it to test
and it never happened. I get the feeling they're about to do it again. They're about to prepare to make that run.
Because Stoltenberg, even today, in this report, says that, we've got to address that Moscow must return the 3 Ukrainian Navy vessels that its forces seized in the Kerch Strait. By the way, they didn't seize it. They were violating the terms of the Kerch Strait, and the Russians were simply enforcing international law.
Yes. International
law that was recognized by everyone except for the ones that don't want to recognize it.
Because NATO put Ukraine up to that stunt.
That's right. And they're also demanding, you got to get out of Crimea. It's not happening. Russia is not giving up Crimea. It's just not going to happen. That means they're going to fight for it. And
this story was done by Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. It's basically a propaganda arm of the U.S.
like
government.
Voice of America.
It's like Voice of America. At the bottom of the story, they buried a very interesting sentence, and I have a little backstory on this. It said that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, planned to begin the next stage of withdrawing troops from the front lines in eastern Ukraine. Now, reportedly has a deal with Vladimir Putin and the other separatist groups, and even pro-Russian ones, to start moving troops back. A lot of people don't know this, but there was an incident this past week where Vladimir Zelensky was on video camera getting in an argument, basically, with a soldier from the Nazi brigade. The Nazi, really, they're like neo-Nazis who are basically fighting on the front lines in Donbass in this region. And the soldier was refusing, as a commander, refusing to move his troops out of the region, not listening to the current president of the country.
Yeah. And Vladimir Putin remarked on this today. He said that he did not think it was wise for President Zelensky to personally go to the front and confront soldiers who then publicly refuse to obey his orders.
It makes it seem like you have a rogue element, rogue army.
So what Putin was saying was that was not a smart move, because you just proved to everybody you don't have control.
You're not in control.
You don't have control of your troops.
Wow.
So there's a resistance inside Ukraine, too. Oh, this next story, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's a humor story. Again, Times of Israel. The absorption ministry, that's kind of like their immigration department.
Kind of immigration, tourism, kind of combined together.
The absorption ministry is the government agency in Israel that's tasked with the responsibility of bringing Jews from other nations to migrate, live in Israel. Well, it's been revealed that the absorption ministry of the Israeli government has been posting fake ads on the internet of these are supposedly Jewish people who moved from other countries to Israel to support Zionism.
Rick, they didn't just...
And none of these people moved. I mean, some of them are actually.
One of them, I think, two of them are real.
Are actually, but they're residents. They didn't move there.
They're basically
they were born
there. Come there. Didn't do I live. He actually even made up the quotes, because he got posted with his quotes about, oh, I love the Aliyah process. It was wonderful to return the homeland. They completely fabricated the statements.
The one said, I came to fulfill the Jewish dream, serving in the army, living in Tel Aviv, maybe the person I am today. This person doesn't exist.
Right.
Fake
immigrants.
They got fake immigrants too. The whole country is built on falsehoods. Okay, Jael Kushner released a photograph today, actually yesterday, of her husband, Jared Kushner, at the Western Wall in Israel. Also with him was Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, Senior Advisor Avi Berkowitz, and U.S. Ambassador David Friedman.
We have the Jerusalem Post article there.
So all of them were there together.
Minus obviously the main man that was previously in charge of this process, Jason Greenblatt.
Yes.
He was not part of this delegation.
I would like to tell Jared Kushner, look, there's no power in that wall. There's no power in it. You can touch it, or you pray into a wall. There's no power in that wall.
Right. Does God live in that wall?
That stone is not doing anything. It's not. Nobody's listening to you, Jared. Who you need to be praying to is the cornerstone.
Right. And even that wall is fake, by the way.
Yes, and his name is Jesus Christ. He's the cornerstone. But everybody that goes there and puts their hand on that wall like there's something magical there. There's nothing there. It's just a wall.
Or write little notes and little prayers and stick them in cracks in the wall.
And leak it later for political gain.
That's idolatry.
It's idolatry. There's nothing there that the wall can't hear you. And if you don't pray in the name of Jesus, God's not hearing you either.
That's right.
So pray in the name of Jesus Christ. And that wall doesn't matter. I don't need a wailing wall because I'm not wailing.
Right.
I'm full of joy. The joy of the Lord. My sins are forgiven. My name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Why would I go to a wailing wall?
That's right. Jesus isn't a wall anyway. He's a door. He's a gate. He provides an invitation to come in.
And he's the only way to get to the Father. You can't get to the Father through your genetic ancestry.
Right.
Only by faith in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, now, we are going to switch over and get to the weird news now.
Oh, was it weird news?
No, that wasn't the weird news.
So that was about a 5 on a 10 right now.
So we're about to crank it up a few notches here. Guess who is now on the White House payroll? When Doc texted me last night, Doc, I had to I was in bed. I had to rub my eyes and look at my phone and go, is that for real?
You probably thought it was Babylon Bee or
yeah, I thought it was the Onion. I thought, come on.
But it's real.
Who is it?
Paula White is now working for Donald Trump directly in the White House. This is a photo of the prayer meeting that they had for Donald Trump earlier this week. I'm not knocking prayer at all, but I am looking at this opportunity where she has now moved into an official capacity within the Trump administration.
The whole gang's there.
Right.
A whole gang of Zionists. Now, Doc, only evangelical Zionists are welcomed at the White House. There are no Lutherans there. There are no Anglicans, no Presbyterians, no Methodists. Only evangelical Zionists who are sold out to the fake state of Israel. That's the only people allowed in the White House. Mr. Trump, there are more people in America who call themselves Christians than that bunch you're hanging out with. Why don't you bring in Christians from other church denominations?
One thing he is able to do, Rick, is he is able to mobilize these people to bring in their voters, their base.
Yes, and that's what this is all about.
It's great, an echo chamber,
and
evangelical echo
chamber. Why would Paula White take this job? Because it's a government job and there's not that much money in it, Doc, compared to being a TV evangelist.
It says White, who has known Trump since 2002, visited the White House a number of times, will work in the Office of Public Liaison, which oversees outreach to groups that help organize parts of the president's base. The Hill is kind of not telling the whole truth here. Specifically, this is for religious groups. It's not just for just groups in general.
Is this a new position, or is she filling a position?
She's actually filling a position that Reverend Johnny Moore, it was a different, had a different name before, and so they've kind of created a new
faith liaison.
Right, and so, but previous administrations had this capacity before. They might have called it something different. But you think back to Herbert Walker Bush, they had the 1,000 points of light initiative.
Very Masonic term.
That was the actual name of it?
Yes.
So,
oh, my goodness.
Then you had under Presidents Clinton and Obama the Faith Initiative, and that tended to have left-leaning people, occupying that particular role. Even George W. Bush had someone occupying that role. So, but it's significant here because this is a big shift. Because think about over the past several weeks.
Well, she's the gatekeeper.
Right. She is the gatekeeper now.
If you're a religious leader and you want to see the president, you have to go through Paula White.
Yes.
That says it all right there.
Now, over the past several weeks, the president has suffered criticism from his evangelical base over the situation with the Kurds, right? And we've talked here on the Godcast about the relationship of the Kurds to Israel, how they're the kissing cousins of the Jews and everything like that.
But you're not going to convince me that if you go to an evangelical church this Sunday, that 90% of the people there attending are going to say, man, am I really concerned about the Kurds?
They don't even know what it's all about, really.
Yeah, the Kurds have gone away in their mind.
Yeah,
but
the Kurds in way.
I think what's happened here, Rick, is that the president is shrewd in doing it, in saying to the evangelicals, look, I'm putting your person here in this position of power and authority. And what he's doing is he's securing his base. He's locking his base down. Because let's face it, Rick, his strongest base, his strongest voting bloc out there that he can pretty much count on, and you saw some wavering here over the past several weeks, has been evangelicals. That's it. Evangelical Zionists in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, numbers 80% in voting for the president. He knows that they deliver and that these people deliver the votes. All they have to do is say,
And the only topic they're concerned about is Israel.
And I also thought it was interesting, too. 2 weeks ago, Paula White published a book. A new book came out called Something Greater. Okay, I guess she found it now, Something Greater. That was endorsed by Robert Jeffress, Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham pulled back his endorsement, by the way, for some reason. But all the top, people within that you saw in that picture, they were all putting out their endorsements for Paula White. I think this plan has been in place for a while. She was also at the UN last month when we were up there.
Yeah, the Religious Freedom Summit.
And so I think this has been in the works for quite a while. They waited till now to make this announcement. It was a key time because they had to secure the base because it had been wavering there. What do you think Pat Robertson's going to say now? What do you think everybody's going to say? Anyone who is critical of the president regarding the Kurds, what will they say now? They're back in the court. They're back, firmly back in the White House and supporting the president.
They're going to say, send us Paula. Because if you think about this, by taking a position in the White House, I don't think we'd be shocked to see Paula White hitting the road on Air Force One, one of the other maybe presidential airplanes, and actually holding rallies in the name of Donald Trump. Because one thing we've learned about the evangelical base, they love to be pandered to. Yes. They love to have the office of the presidency put in front of them. Makes them feel, again, that evangelical Zionism has taken a prominent position.
Now, I said a few minutes ago, why would Paula White accept this job? Because a government job doesn't pay much. She's taking a demotion from being a national celebrity on religious television and raking in millions of dollars, which I don't believe any of these ministries really bring in. I believe the money comes in, but I don't think it's coming in from viewers. Not to the tune of $50 and $100 million, $200 million a year. I think it's money laundering. I think these major ministries have been purchased by the Zionists, and they've been turned into propaganda machines. But think about this. If she is the gatekeeper and you want to have access to the president, what are you going to do?
You're going to please Paula White.
You're going to make a tax-deductible, non-reportable donation to an organization she controls.
Oh, boy. That sounds very illegal.
Nothing illegal at all.
Nothing illegal about it at all.
To buy influence.
Unless somebody shows that
it actually bought them influence.
That donation got that meeting.
Oh, boy.
But that's what I think.
I think you might be right, Rick.
I'm not saying President Trump knows about it. I'm just saying the thought's probably going through Paula White's mind. Well, I could make a lot of money for my nonprofit by charging an admission fee to the White House.
Selling influence, essentially.
Yes.
Well, one thing that this position does provide, of course, is access, but also gives the opportunity for someone in this position to decide which groups receive, partnerships with federal agencies and things like that. That this endorsement is coming now from the White House. So when you think about, let's say there's an opportunity to work in a certain country, right? For whatever reason, build water wells or anything like that. Well, if you've got, an influence in the White House now, and you've got a favorable position there, you might be granted greater access than you were somewhere else. Now, on the one hand, there'd be a lot of folks out there that say, wow, we've got a foothold in the White House now. I mean, we're in there. We've won after all these years.
It's not Christianity. It's about Zionism.
Right. That's right. That's what it's about.
These people aren't Christian. They're Zionists.
They're not talking about the nation repenting. They're not calling for a stop of the 2,300 children killed every day due to abortion.
They're not. I want you to see this. Now, this next article actually goes back to August, Washington Post. It was August 19, 2019. But the Washington Post made a very astute observance. They asked the question, why many evangelical Christians now celebrate Jewish holidays? And they notice there's something different among the American evangelicals. They're more Jewish than they are Christian.
Or at least a block of them are. And so,
well, the evangelicals.
Right.
See, Doc, that's the group. It's not Lutherans, Presbyterians, Methodists, and so forth. It's the evangelicals, Southern Baptists, Charismatics, Pentecostals, non-denominational churches, Messianic Jews, Hebrew roots people. They've been Zionized.
Yes.
Jesus told them to go into all the world and evangelize the world, preach the gospel, make disciples of all men and women, baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They didn't do it. Instead, they got in cahoots with the Zionists, and the Zionists have Zionized them. And they become more Jewish than they are Christian. And at some point, you lose your salvation, if you ever had it.
Because it gets to a point that these observances of these holidays and these feasts now become a requirement. And that's what it turns into.
Yes.
I remember the very first...
been Judaized.
Right. I remember the very first Passover Seder that I participated in. This was back in Bible college. And, the way it was presented then was it presented this is the picture of Christ in this. This is, the Lord. Now I look back at it and I think to myself, oh my goodness, that was, so they were introducing this back in a Pentecostal Bible college back in the 80s. But it didn't stop there. Then it was every other holiday, every other feast holiday. Now, is Christ revealed in the feast? Absolutely, he's revealed in it. He's revealed in every single one of the feasts.
But as Christians, we're not obligated to keep the feast.
Right. At some point in people's minds, it starts becoming a requirement. Well, we got to celebrate Passover this year because Jesus celebrated the Passover. He celebrated the feast. And so we've got to do it too. No, we don't. They're done. It's finished. When Jesus was on the cross and he said, "It is finished," he meant it was done. It's completed. You didn't have to do all this anymore. It's done.
The old covenant was done. Here's a new covenant. But these Judaizers are constantly trying to bring back the old covenant laws and rules and regulations. And it was happening in the first century of the church. It's still happening today.
I tell you another reason why a lot of Christians celebrate these feasts, Rick, is because they feel guilty.
And that's what the Washington Post argument made.
Yes.
They said
they're guilty.
Atonement for
they're
past
atoning
sins.
for their anti-Semitism.
Right. So we don't want to be anti-Semitic, so let's celebrate the feast.
Look, I didn't do anything. I didn't have anything to do with the Holocaust, and I don't have to repent of anything.
And I don't hate the Jews. I love the Jews.
I love them, and I want them to be saved. I love them enough to tell them that the Zionists are going to take them to hell.
Yes.
The evangelical Zionists are going to take you to hell.
Right. Because they won't preach Jesus to you. They're telling you that at some point in the future you might get saved if you survive the Antichrist killing 2/3 of the Jews in the world.
Yes, they love the Jews so much that they want them all, most of them, to die in a war of Armageddon.
Right.
That's their battle. That's their plan. That's their prophecy plan. No.
But we got 144,000 that'll
God
get saved.
desires to save you now.
Yes. Now.
Today is the day of salvation, not some future prophetic event. I don't even want to get into the war of Armageddon, because the Bible doesn't say a war of Armageddon, does it?
No, it does not.
Try to find the phrase, a war of Armageddon. It's not there. Oh, people right now pulling their hair out. Oh, Rick, you don't know. Yeah, well, look it up and send me the verse that says the war of Armageddon.
Info at Trunews.com.
Yep. Show me the verse that says all the armies of the world surround the political state of Israel. Show me that verse. Show me the verse that says just when all the armies get their tanks and troop carriers and everything around Israel, Jesus Christ comes and kills all of them.
Yeah, show me where Gog and Magog are Turkey and Russia from the Scripture. From the Scripture now, mind you.
Not your interpretation.
Not from something you brought in. Not saying, well, that's Rosh means prince and everything, and Rosh means red, and red is Russian.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy talk. Yeah. So,
hey, now,
speaking of crazy talk,
we're going to give you some really crazy, we're going to let you hear some crazy talk on religious television. I saw this the other morning. I'm sitting in our kitchen. I was sitting there at the bar on the stool, and I was working on my laptop, and my wife Susan she was watching some TV, and she was going through the channels, and she came to Daystar TV.
Right.
Marcus and Joni Lamb, whom I've not seen in about 2 decades since I worked at TBN. But Marcus and Joni founded Daystar TV, and it's become Jewish TV.
Literally.
The Star of David is on their website. You don't see the cross. You don't see anything Christian. They have Star of David. Now, they're the ones that built the multi-million-dollar studio in Jerusalem last year, and the Jews burned it down.
Oh, the one that was mysteriously firebombed. But they didn't blame it on the Palestinians.
They didn't say anything about it.
They let that one completely alone.
Yeah, because they know who burned it down, all right? But they can't figure this out. Why would the Jews burn down our studio? Because they don't like Jesus.
That's it.
All right? They're not buying into your Darbyism. They don't believe that there's going to be a war of Armageddon and they're going to get saved. They don't believe it, Marcus. All right? But they got you putting the Star of David on your TV stations. Okay, so Susan's, she's watching this joker being interviewed by Joni Lamb, and
Troy Brewer was his name.
Troy Brewer?
Yes. Brewer.
I did not know who he was.
Well, you will by the end of this today.
Well, Doc, I'm telling you, God is my witness. I had my back to the TV. I heard his voice, really not paying attention to it. But, I'm drinking my coffee and working on my laptop. At some point, he started talking about numbers.
Yes.
And I now started paying attention. And then he really got into numbers. And I said to myself, Rick, he's going to say gematria.
And then he said gematria.
He actually said gematria on religious, I'm not calling it Christian TV. It's not Christian TV. It's Jewish religious Zionist television. They've been taken over. He said gematria, which is numerology in Kabbalah mysticism.
That's right. And in occult practices, occult textbooks, gematria is considered part of the occult. The occult claims gematria.
So all this stuff, Doc, it's gotten so bad on religious television that they, just like the CIA guys are now, the spooks are out here saying, hey, we're spooks, we're spies, we're taking down the President of the United States. Now the Zionists on religious television are openly coming out saying, look, we practice gematria. We're into Kabbalah. I mean, Jim Baker was selling Kabbalah books a couple months ago, remember?
That's right.
Yes.
Right? So this is where religious television is at now. They're openly saying Kabbalah names, Kabbalah phrases, and these gullible, stupid, biblically illiterate religious people are sitting there being indoctrinated by Kabbalah wizards.
Yes.
You're being taken to hell. You're going to be taken to hell by these people because you've given up your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. You're putting your faith in the state of Israel and believing a lie. We have a video clip of this guy.
I have several of them, but we're going to start with number 15 here for control so we can set this up so you know that we're not accusing somebody of something they might have said or they could have said. We're going to have, we're going to show this clip. This is from Johnny Lamb's television show called Table Talk in the morning. Joni Lamb's, excuse me. Joni Lamb's Table Talk in the morning. Basically, it's like
Christian version of The View.
Their version of The View. They have several women around the table. They talk, about having babies and all this other stuff, and then they bring a guest on to tickle their ears. And so, so this is Troy Brewer, and he has now has a program on Daystar, regular program on Daystar, and he's on the program today talking about the year 5780. Everybody's talking about that, right? The big number.
That's the Hebrew year for this for year, 2020?
As it started here last month. We're now in the year 5780. And how that is significant, why the numbers 5780 are significant. But then in this particular clip here that you're going to watch, he explains what the source is, and he tells you right out. And when Rick told me first, I was like, are you sure that he said what he said? We'll let you decide for yourself what he said. This is Troy Brewer talking on Table Talk on Daystar.
Yes. If you're going to study, if you're going to know what it means to move from the 70s into the 80s, then you have to be able to look at the actual Hebrew letters. And this can be a little bit challenging at first because the Hebrews do not use numerals, they use letters. Mm-hmm. Now on this side of the world we say the number 1 has 1 angle, the number 2 has 2 angles, 3 angles, 4 angles, and so on, and this is 0 angles, right? Well, the Jews are like, not so much. They're like, we don't need to do that. They're like, look, man, we've already got an A, a B, a C, a D, which is in Hebrew, right? And so there's 22 of those, and the A represents 1, the B, or the bet, represents 2, and then when it gets to 10, it jumps from 10 to 20 to 30, and then when it gets to 100, it goes 100, 200, 300, and 400 is the 22nd letter. So that means every single Hebrew word is also a number. Yep. Every single Hebrew word. So that means, what are words that are also the number 5780? Prayer is one of those words. This is a huge season of prayer. Prayer is also, has a gematria, or the numerical value. Counsel is also a Hebrew word that has the gematria. Are you ready for this? The word is 5780. This is a huge year of the word.
All right, so why
there, the example. Evangelical Zionist teaching, Jewish Kabbalah, Freemason, gematria on religious television. That man needs to repent.
Yes.
Marcus Lamb, Joni Lamb, you need to repent of your sins against Almighty God for promoting witchcraft on a network that you claim is Christian. You're promoting witchcraft. You need to repent of your sins. That man's a deceiver. He knows what it is. But the fact that he said it is evidence that he's being trained by Kabbalah wizards. I've heard on religious channels, I've heard various people like Perry Stone mention, the rabbis have taught me.
Right.
The rabbis in Jerusalem. During my trip there, they taught me how to use this.
One, Steve Cioccolanti, he says, I've gone through extensive training with the rabbis.
Yes.
And so, and you see
all of them, they're going to Israel. Every time you hear these clowns going to Israel,
they're being taught by the rabbis.
They're being taught by Kabbalah rabbis. And they've been indoctrinated, they've been bought off, they've been brought into the system, and then they're deceiving the people watching who are so biblically illiterate they don't know that this is witchcraft being taught to them. And then when somebody tells them, they think you're the heretic.
Right.
Well, you are. In a sense, we are, because we're not part of their religion.
That's true.
We're against their religion. We're for Christianity.
And what works just like the way the great deceiver does, in that it takes a little bit of truth and then mixes it with a whole lot of lie. And so, yes, Hebrew letters do represent numbers. That is true. And you can use numbers to calculate certain things in the scripture. That is also true. But this goes beyond this, Rick. What they're trying to do is they're trying to find secret information being revealed by the numbers, by somehow calculating what the combined numbers mean, or if they can deduce names or find these other things. For instance, here in clip number 16, and by the way, if you listen to this whole episode, I've kept hearing words like frequency, wavelength, convergence. New age.
Yeah, all
new age terms that were brought up
on Daystar TV.
Right. So in clip number 16 here, he's going to talk about the significance of this year 5780 and in the Gregorian calendar 2020. Now, remind you that there is no Hebrew connection to the Gregorian calendar at all, right? But somehow he's going to make that leap, and these silly women are going to eat it up. Okay, so this is clip number 16. Watch this.
And whenever it comes to 2020, there are 20 dreams and there are 20 visions in the Bible, which is incredible. Now, for 20 years, so-and-so waited here. For 20 years, so-and-so waited there, and it means expectancy. 20 is when it actually happens, that you've been waiting for it to happen. And then check this out. 5 plus 7 plus 8 plus 0, the Hebrew calendar, equals 20.
Wow.
5, 7, 8, 0 equals 20. So they converge. They converge this year in a tremendous way.
You see what he did there? Mm-hmm. He took biblical examples and said, 2020, and this is the year 2020. Well, in the Chinese calendar, it's not the year 2020. In the Persian calendar, it's not the year 2020. So the Gregorian calendar isn't, a divine calendar by any stretch of the imagination. It'd be this would be akin to me saying, Rick, I wear a size 12 shoe, and I have 3 pairs of dress shoes at home. Well, 12 and 3, that relates to Genesis 12:3. I will bless those that bless thee. I will curse those that curse thee. See, that I made the numbers, they fit, right?
Anytime you hear these people on religious television doing this number stuff, they're getting it from Kabbalah. All right. I've heard it for years. And it was a long time until I figured out where they were getting it. We have here from My Jewish Learning, what is Gematria?
Yes.
All right. This is a Jewish website. A Jewish website. Gematria is a numerological system by which Hebrew letters correspond to numbers. A system developed by practitioners of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, derived from Greek influence and became a tool for interpreting biblical texts. Then later in the same article, it says, Gematria is essential to Kabbalah,
yes,
the Jewish mystical tradition.
It says the very basis of the Kabbalistic cosmological system rests on the belief that God created the universe through the power of the Hebrew letters. They believe that, through the power of the Hebrew letters, along with their numerical values.
All these guys and women, men and women on these religious television channels who are going to Israel, being trained by rabbis, and talking about numbers.
And the only equation they're really presenting there is those words plus that doctrine equal damnation.
Yes, but all of these people have been trained by Kabbalah wizards, and I suspect that these charlatans on religious television have now been themselves converted and have become ordained, whatever you call a Kabbalah wizard. That
sorcerers.
They're sorcerers, but they've got their diploma. These guys have their diploma now,
right,
in Kabbalah wizardry. And they're working their magic on religious television that used to be Christian. Maybe it was never Christian. Maybe it never was Christian. But where they're at now is that they're openly Kabbalah. They're promoting Israel, Jewish mysticism. I mean, you see Jonathan Cahn wearing his all black. He's a rabbi.
Got a shawl.
He's got his
Doing
prayer
the hand
shawl.
signal.
You know, yes. All these networks, the Word Network, you know, which is run by a non-Christian Jew. The Word Network.
Yes.
The man in charge of the Word Network, the biggest black Christian network, is not a Christian.
Yes. Shock, right?
Yes. And he's selling prayer shawls.
He's in it for the money.
Yes. He tells people, I've got Moses in my heart and Jesus in my pocket.
Yes.
Blasphemy.
Right? Because he's selling his Israeli-made trinkets, like the prayer shawls and all that stuff. He's selling it by the millions of dollars worth per month to black Christians in America who think that they're getting closer to God.
Right. Troy Brewer's, you know, this wasn't just a one-off.
Right.
You know, he has a website his prophetic numbers website. This is still number 18. I want to show this here real quick. So this is his website, thepropheticnumbers.com, and I got two stills here, Rick. I wanted to show you real quick. One is, and this is right on his front page. It says, "What numbers are you seeing? Look around you right now. What numbers are you seeing? Are you seeing certain numbers pop up in your life? Are they coming along in your life? Are you like seeing the number 23 pop up a lot, or 87, or whatever it might be?" And let's do the next still, guys, here. What numbers are following you?
Following me?
What numbers are following you?
Well, we don't know who's following them.
And so he uses this, Troy Brewer uses this as an introduction to his 30 lesson 30 lesson plan, 30 separate lessons that talk to you about the numbers within gematria, basically. So let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed numbers pop up in your life?
Sure.
Are you being stalked by a number, Rick, right now?
Well, a lot of people see 1111.
Right.
Or 444.
Right. So now, if I'm seeing certain numbers pop up in patterns, or I'm thinking there's a pattern, let's say I see the number 23 pop up a lot. Am I supposed to now think, well, God's showing me the number 23. Maybe there's a meaning to the number 23. Maybe if I go to Troy Brewer's website and look up his lesson on the number 23, I'm going to get discernment on
Secret
what it
knowledge,
means. Rather than go to the Word of God and get the discernment I need from Him, based on a number.
Doc, this is a divination.
It absolutely is.
That you're going to study a number to divine your future. It's divination. He's telling you, Troy Brewer is telling you, pay attention to the numbers around you, study the meaning of those numbers according to Jewish Kabbalah mysticism.
And you'll have knowledge.
And you'll have secret knowledge that nobody else will have.
Right.
Does he have on his website gematria?
Yes, he does. He actually has a whole page devoted to it. I don't know if I have a still of that or not, but there's a page right here. This is the title. It says Prophetic Numbers, the Language of Gematria. This is from August 17th, 2018. So right here. And he goes through and lists a whole bunch of different examples of how different numbers mean different things when you add them all up. The Jewish people have always known that God uses numbers to speak. It's not only part of their culture, it's embedded in their language. It's a thing called gematria.
And this is the same thing that the WeWork CEO, Adam Newman, used to invest and ultimately lose a ton of money on his company.
But this is also what Yael Kushner and Jared Kushner practice.
Yes.
They actually go to the grave of their dead
Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson.
Rabbi Schneerson.
The rabbi. They go to his gravesite and pray because they think he's the Messiah.
Troy Brewer actually says this on this page, Rick. Now, this should shock you right here. If you believe in the Word of God, if you love the Word of God, this should shock you. Gematria is the first step in searching for God's voice in numbers.
What a liar.
That's
Trey Brewer, you're a liar and a deceiver.
What's the difference between that and astrology, using a Ouija board, tarot cards?
This guy's church is in Burleson, Texas.
Right.
All right, it's pretty close to where I used to live when I lived in Texas. So great country, great territory, Doc. These Texas Christians are being indoctrinated into Jewish Kabbalah mysticism. If you know anybody going to that church in Burleson, Texas, you got to tell them to get out of that church right away.
Run.
On his website, when he goes through the lessons, I actually had to sit through a few of the lessons today to really get an understanding. Make sure he really believed this. On his lapel, he had a dual flag. One was Texas, and the other was the Star of David. And so, he proud resident of Texas, but also proud of Israel as well.
Of Israel.
And so, I want to encourage our viewers.
He's a direct descendant of one of the soldiers in the Republic of Texas, the Battle of San Juancito, which I'm trying to think. Sam Houston, I think, was in that battle. Sam Houston was 33rd degree Freemason.
Right.
The man who went on to become the first governor, basically, of Texas.
Yes. And founder of Austin and everything. So Texas is a Masonic state. So maybe the reason he has the dual flags, Texas and Israel, is because they're both Masonic.
Right.
These people are teaching you Freemason Kabbalah witchcraft.
Hey,
run from them, run. Run, get your soul and run.
Every Christian that's watching this or listening to this today, you need to cut the Kabbalah cable. I mean, you really do. You need to quit watching it. You need to quit listening to it, because this is what you're getting. This is what you're being indoctrinated in. This is what that's being taught, and because it's popular, because it sells, because look what I've got. I know some things that you don't, Rick.
You're letting the devil into your life.
Rather than. And what really breaks my heart about this, Rick, is it distracts from the Word of God. It tells me, you know what?
It replaces the Word of God.
It does.
It tells you that you're studying the numbers that are in the Word of God and not the Word of God.
And that God's speaking through the numbers instead of the written Word. And the very basis of gematria is that the numbers take on life itself. Instead of Jesus, it was the Word made flesh. Jesus is. Yes. Not numbers, not cosmology, not any of that. There's variations of gematria too. There's one that takes the first letter out of a whole passage of scripture, and then you take the letters and you make another word out of it, or you take the letters of a word and you mix them all up, scrabble them up, and come up with another word. You and I both, back in the 80s and 90s, we were stung on Bible codes.
Yes.
This is just another variation. I mean, Bible codes.
I was introduced to the Bible codes by Yaakov Ramsel, who's passed away, a delightful Jewish man that I knew. Had many conversations with Yaakov Ramsel. He was an expert on the Bible codes. I didn't understand at that time that what he was introducing me to was Kabbalah.
Gematria, that's exactly. It was just digital gematria.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But I do now. And that's why I'm warning you. Run from these devils.
Yes.
Get away from them. I'll tell you something else that's involved with gematria and numbers. It's called cross correspondence. Necromancers use it. Necromancers are people who talk to dead spirits, who get information from the spirit of a dead person. That's necromancy. It's prohibited. It's in the big sins that you can't do. Okay? God gets really ticked off when people do this sin. Don't do it. All right? So cross correspondence is when a necromancer communicates with a spirit of a dead person, and gematria is involved in this because the cross correspondences are connected to physical objects that help you communicate with the dead spirit. Now, what the Kabbalah wizards do, and I just have a feeling I'm going to say this, and somebody out there is going to gasp and go, I know somebody's doing it. Okay? what the Kabbalah wizards do is that they take the numbers and they create a formula to develop a perfume. And the perfume is an odor that the dead spirit is attracted to.
Oh my goodness.
And so they're given this formula through numbers. They create the perfume, and when they spray the perfume in a room, the demon, they don't think it's a demon. They
Does
think
it smell
it's
like sulfur? I mean,
it could be whatever.
Could be a beautiful smell.
Could be, yeah. It's whatever the demon likes. But they think it's a dead spirit. They think they're talking to Uncle so-and-so, okay? But it's a demon. But they get the formula through gematria.
Right.
my goodness.
And they create perfumes. That it makes you wonder, in the perfume industry, how many of them...
Like Ron Lauder?
Yes.
How much? Estee Lauder.
Aren't they all Jews that involved in pedophilia?
Rick, I know.
Do they create perfumes for the attraction of children?
A demonic aroma. I know from speaking to people in the industry, they do use numbers when they're creating the formulas for the perfumes. That is a process. They have the types and the strengths of each of the chemicals.
They're getting it through cross correspondence.
When you had first mentioned this to me earlier today, Rick, about cross correspondence, my first introduction to that, I said, "What are you? I've never heard this before." So I decided to do a few looking up on this as well. Mm-hmm. This is also involved in the tokenization process too.
Trinkets.
Or a trinket or a dollar bill is given to you. Remember that rabbi is handing out dollar bills?
Yes.
Or a coin.
Right, or a coin, like a temple coin with somebody's face on it.
Witches always try to get an object into your possession.
Right. And so, folks, this is a real thing. Whether you believe it or not, the devil believes in it. And the devil uses it to influence.
That's how he interacts with the physical world.
That's right.
Our topic was whether Donald Trump is going to build the third temple. We got to get to this because it's time to wrap it up here. So, two stories. We talked about this in the past couple of years. Breaking Israel News, which is a Kabbalah website.
Yes.
Please do not frequent that website. Breaking Israel News. It's a Kabbalah website.
It's as bad as Chabad.org.
Yes. Well, it's all the same. They are Chabad. So they had in 2016, May of 2016, during the presidential campaign, listen to this. Biblical numerology predicts Trump will usher in Messiah. The Kabbalah wizards in 2016 were saying in Israel, Trump is going to win and he's going to bring the Messiah.
Right.
And a lot of these goofy, silly evangelical Zionists got all weirded out. They don't realize it's not the Messiah, it's the devil.
Yes.
It's Satan who's coming, not Jesus Christ. This so-called Jewish Messiah is Satan.
And then when President Trump made the promise that he was going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and then when he delivered on that, that was just reeling it in. Just bring it in further. Because look, President Trump, he's going to bring in a new age, the age of the Messiah. The next thing that we have to look for, Rick, is the temple.
That's right. So in December 11, 2017, Breaking Israel News published a headline, Messianic Trump-Cyrus Connection Revealed Through Hebrew Numerology.
Gematria, Bible codes.
And what did they say? That Gematria, the Bible codes, the Kabbalah wizardry of numerology reveals that Donald Trump is Cyrus.
Yes.
So every time you hear Lance Wallnau or Jim Baker or any of these other guys on television saying that Trump is Cyrus, they got the information either directly or indirectly from Kabbalah wizards.
And notice what they say. They don't say he's like King Cyrus. They say he is King Cyrus. They're making a direct connection. And
even if they say he's like, they're still getting it from Kabbalah.
Absolutely. And then they make the leap from that, using the same gematria, to say that the Messiah is connected to Cyrus.
This article from 2017, Rabbi Glazerson, a Bible codes expert, discovered Trump's ties to Cyrus and the Messiah within the Bible codes.
You know, they felt so strongly about it. The Sanhedrin, the nascent Sanhedrin, this new basically group of Pharisees in Jerusalem, they sent a letter to President Trump, the president-elect, president at the time, to telling him to build the temple, the third temple.
So I came across another article. This is today, Greenwich time, the Trump administration's obsession with an ancient Persian emperor. And it's not just the evangelical Zionists that are talking about Cyrus. Mike Pompeo is referring to Cyrus. There are other people inside the Trump administration who are talking about Cyrus.
King Cyrus, king of the Medes and Persians. And guess who in our world today, Edward, is the natural descendants of the Medes and Persians?
The Kurds.
The Kurds. So is Donald Trump king of the Kurds? I mean,
well, the Iranians are also, they're Persians, but the Jews want to bomb the Persians.
But the Kurds claim direct lineage back to the Medes. And see, and that's that other connection again, once again, between the Kurds and the Jewish people. And, you know, it just keeps multiplying over and over again.
Well, talk about quickly the connection with the genies.
Yeah, in various legends and in the Quran, the ideas are that the jinn, or we call genies today, get translated today to genies, that they are they married women, Jewish virgins, and they produced the people known today as the Kurds.
So the Kurds, by that myth,
right,
the Kurds are descendants of a hybrid creature.
Right. And these jinns,
we'll just leave it at that.
And these jinns,
which explains why the Zionists are so committed to them.
These jinns were servants of King Solomon. They helped him, in the legend, helped him build the temple and his throne. And that's important that there's a distinction.
Okay, so here's our grand finale. This is our grand finale. This article to wrap this all up and make you go,
today.
This is today's news. Washington Examiner revealed Trump wanted to build megachurch. There it is. Trump wanted to build megachurch. Who says so? Paula White.
The new White House staffer.
She claims in an interview with the Washington Examiner that Donald Trump personally, privately told her he wants to build a mega church facility.
And has been wanting to do it for quite some time.
In back 2006, according to a recollection she gave to the Washington Examiner, she said he wanted to build a house of God. And he said to her, let's do this. Let's build this before we're too old.
Isn't that about the time that Paula White was going to Atlantic City to have private Bible studies with Donald Trump?
That's right, and that's in her own words.
Private
Bible
one-on-one.
A female pastor having a private Bible study
at a casino.
She was flying from Florida, from Orlando, Tampa area. I believe she was pastoring over there at the time, and going to Atlantic City and having private Bible studies.
Is that the time of her divorce?
That's about the time of her divorce, yes. Before her third marriage.
Must have been quite a Bible study.
What struck me about this article, Rick, I don't know if you caught it, but she says she has never revealed Trump's desire to build a church. It was part of a dream. Part of a dream.
That Trump had a dream?
Yes, that's the assumption.
A dream as like, hey, my dream is to build a big church, or like I had a dream.
It doesn't distinguish there, but I'm getting the impression that he had a dream about it, to build a church, a cathedral, so, like the Crystal Cathedral, not just a mega church, but like a church like the Crystal Cathedral.
Iconic, something that everyone will talk about for a long time.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. When I read this afternoon, all right, because we'd been studying gematria and Troy Brewer and all this crazy stuff and preparing for this show. And then I saw the article with the two together. Paula White's at the White House, working in the White House, and then she reveals, hey, Donald Trump told me he wants to build a mega church building someday. And this thought came to me, the Zionists are going to whisper into his ear, Donald Trump, you are King Cyrus.
You're the great architect.
You're even greater than Cyrus. You are the reincarnation of Solomon.
Right.
And maybe Paula's Bathsheba, right?
Queen of Sheba.
I mean, not Bathsheba, but the Queen of Sheba. Maybe she's the Queen of Sheba. All right, but I think they're going to tell Donald Trump that he has a calling to build the third temple in Jerusalem.
That dream you had, Mr. President.
It's an anointing.
That wasn't the Crystal Cathedral. That was the temple in Jerusalem.
Oh my goodness.
Now, the title of this, the headline of this article is a little disingenuous because it doesn't say anywhere that President Trump said he wanted to build a megachurch. What he actually said, and I had read through this, he wanted to build a house of God. Okay. He said that let's build a crystal cathedral for God. And then says, who knows what God will do? Who knows? Maybe we will end up building a cathedral. Now that takes on a different meaning because when we think of megachurch, we think of some big place that can house a couple thousand people and and have a rock concert every Sunday morning. But what is actually being said here wasn't that at all.
It was a religious shrine,
a shrine, a cathedral, but something bold.
Who can they go to right now? Name one person in the world that the Zionists, the Jewish Zionists, and the evangelical Zionists could agree upon. Name the builder. Name the stonemason.
Good Jerusalem stone.
Who is capable of building a massive structure unlike any other opulent structure.
Like towers?
Yes. Name another builder, a famous builder. Who would you choose? There's only one name. Donald J. Trump. That's why we're calling today's show Trumple. It's just play on words. They'll call
the Trump Temple.
They call it the Trump, yeah. Well, he did say he's more popular in Israel than God.
Yeah, he said he could run for prime minister and get elected in Israel.
Well, why would you be a prime minister if you want to be king of the Jews? Because they're not going to make him prime minister. If he builds the third temple, they will crown him king of the Jews.
And he's already being compared to King Cyrus, right?
So why not take it
king of the Jews? He could be king of the Kurds too.
Why not take it a step farther and declare him, prophesy over him that he's Solomon? It all goes back to Freemasons wanting to build their temple where they can worship Lucifer and be fed with the hidden secret knowledge from Babylon. That's what it's all about. Everybody that wants a third temple, look, the Freemasons, they want a temple so they can worship Lucifer and study and receive and just relish in Babylonian secret knowledge. So it's not secret anymore.
Demonic knowledge.
See, it's not, at that time it won't be secret knowledge anymore. Because they will cover the whole earth with Lucifer's knowledge.
Yes.
Because they see him as the illuminated one who was going to illuminate everybody else.
Yes.
That's what they want to build. So every preacher who talks about the need for a third temple, shut them down right away. Either they are a Freemason or they've been indoctrinated by Freemasons. But it is not a biblical doctrine. It's a Freemason doctrine. They want that temple. They need that temple.
They love that temple. They love that temple more than Jesus.
Because Lucifer, listen, I don't believe the Bible says that there's going to be a third temple and Satan's going to walk into it and declare himself God. I think those are all misinterpretations of Scripture. But these people are
They believe that.
They believe it, and they're trying to make these things happen.
Yes.
So what if Trump builds the temple? They destroy the Temple Mount. They destroy the mosque. They build a temple for the Jews. And he's already said he's more popular than God. So what if he walks into the temple that he builds and says, I am God? We got chastised by the Trumpites. The Trumpers, they came down on me like a ton of bricks when we rebuked Donald Trump for talking in such blasphemous terms a couple of months ago.
Right.
So why wouldn't he go into a temple and say what he just said? And his followers would worship him.
They've been primed for it.
They've been prepared for it, you're right, by the evangelical Zionists who are really Zionists. They're not Christians, they're Zionists. Will it get that weird? I don't know, but I didn't think Paula White would be in the White House. I
woke up this morning and Paula White was working in the White House. That's
weird.
That's how my day started today.
That's weird. And then it ended the day with Paula White saying Trump wants to build
a cathedral.
All right, so, and then Daystar Television has a gematria wizard.
On Kabbalah cable. So,
folks,
Lord, this is
come quickly,
yes.
Lord Jesus. Come quickly, Lord Jesus. Hey, that's it for today. I think we just set an all-time record. We got to wrap it up and go home. It's Friday. Just think about these things. Spend tomorrow studying the Word of God. Be still. Be quiet throughout the day. Study the Word of God. Ask God to speak to you, not through numbers, but through His Word.
Yes, amen.
He doesn't speak to people through numbers. He speaks through His Word. Spend Saturday and Sunday. Spend time with the Lord Jesus Christ. Be quiet. Turn off all the gadgets and the noise. Just be quiet and look around you. Don't look for numbers. Look for the beauty of God's creation.
Amen.
Amen.
It's not in numbers. It's in the beauty of His creation. And just let the Lord just revive your soul and just ask Him about these things, about the deception that's taking place. We're doing our best. Folks, some of you are wondering, why is True News for the past year, why you've been spending so much time talking about Zionism and Kabbalah? Because if you're going to talk about the return of Jesus Christ, you have to talk about the deception that's going to be there in the last days. You're going to have to talk about the synagogue of Satan. You're going to have to talk about the rise of the satanic empire on the earth before Christ comes back. That's what we're talking about. That's why we're spending all this time. We're trying to show you what it is, who's building it, and that it's right here in your face. And they're calling themselves Christian, but they're not. They're Freemasons.
Amen.
And they're deceiving people. That's why we spend so much time on it. And they're trying to create wars. They're trying to force their fake prophecies to come true. And they're willing to start World War III to make their prophecies come true. That's why we're telling you these things. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. They want World War III. They want to destroy the mosque on the Temple Mount. I mean, what do you think that's going to do? If they pull that one off.
Enrage the entire Muslim world. Start World War III.
I don't know about that. I've been thinking about that a little bit too. There may be factors at play here that we don't even understand that would allow for that to actually happen for the temple to be built.
Let's save that. Let's save that for that's for Monday, because we're so late here. We're so late here. Hey, I would appreciate your financial support this weekend. I really need it. We're doing a lot, and I'm always pushing the pedal to the metal. I'm always going farther than I went before. And some of you don't understand it. You say, I don't know why you need funds. Listen, if I didn't reach out, if I didn't go farther than I was going before, we never would build this.
Right.
This took faith. This took stretching my faith, your faith. That's how we expand the kingdom. You don't do it by just sitting still. Jesus didn't say, stand ye and go nowhere in the world. Is that what He said? Go ye.
Go ye.
And to go ye, you have to move your feet. You got to go somewhere. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Yes. It requires faith. Giving requires faith. It's an action. When we give offerings to God, when we don't really have the money to give, it requires faith.
Amen.
That's why God responds to it. He's not responding to the actual dollars. He's responding to your faith.
Yes.
Your faith in Him. That something in your heart said, I need God to work in my life, and I'm going to do something for His kingdom. I'm going to take this step of faith. That's faith. And that's why God responds to it and blesses our giving. So I'm asking you to do something for True News this weekend. We need your support. Thank you so much for watching us. We'll be back here on Monday. Who knows what we'll be talking about on Monday? We love you. Goodbye.
God bless you.